What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Found Bytes, a game review series. My name is Brian, and I'll be your host. If you don't know about us, we're all about finding and testing out small, high-quality video games. This is a podcast that aims to respect your time and money as a gamer and a consumer by sifting through storefronts and sales to find those gems that may be worth your precious resources. But enough about the show. Let's get into our next game. Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars is the game for this week's episode. Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars is a role-playing game / role-playing sim game developed by Alim and published by Square Enix, and it was released in 2021. The game is available on PS4, Switch, PC, and Android and iOS. Nothing on Xbox, nothing on new generation consoles. While playing this game, I feel a lot of Inscription, especially the sim element of that, kind of being at a tabletop game, almost like you are in a D&D session, like there are pieces, everything is going to revolve around cards, not quite a board, but again, like the table, but then if certain things will happen, like a tray will come and things like that, and there'll be a game piece that you're moving to move your party. Everything is card-based, like the entire board, like there's no maps. Everything is like the cards are the map, and so it's just going to be wide arrays of cards lined up, flipping them, discovering the world and things like that. It's very unique visually in that respect. I've never seen anything like this, where like there's no actual map, there's no like actual land or what you're seeing. Everything is just on a card, which is super interesting. But other than that, it's a typical role-playing game like a Final Fantasy. Certainly takes a lot just from the aura of games like Octopath Traveler, Bravely Default. Again, they're all Square Enix games, so no surprise there. And of course, games like Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark that we've talked about on and off again. Just that feel of like going on a journey, having a party, getting experience, leveling up, different equipment for your characters, things like that. The game released with an MSRP of $29.99. Now, there are two other games in this series after this. This is the first one that was made. I forget the names of the other two, but you can buy the trilogy, and that's for $49.99. If you're playing it straight through, this one should probably take you around 13-14 hours. If you're trying to get everything in the game, there are some secrets. You know, you could get lost in like the optional card game, things like that. It might take you about 20 hours, maybe even over if you're a completionist. I got this on PlayStation. I've been playing it on my PS5 and a little bit on the Portal, but it is the PS4 version. I got it on sale for $11.99, and I've probably put in about 7 hours. I would not say I'm halfway through the story because I'm being pretty thorough, very perfectionist, trying to uncover all of the map. I don't believe there is a physical edition available for this game, but on Square Enix's website, they tend to sell a lot of stuff, like vinyl soundtracks and things like that. The only thing I could see for this game is like a metal card set. So like your three main characters that you get in the beginning of the game, like their cards in maybe like a stainless steel or like an aluminum style metal card. So there is a set for that. I'm not sure what that costs. I think maybe like $30-$40 or something like that. And I did just find out there is a free demo for the game, and it's actually the prologue for the story. I didn't know that, so maybe before you want to dive in, you might want to check out the free demo. Because it actually provides some more context. I missed that, but pretty cool to have that option. And the developer, we said it was Alim, I'm not sure, A-L-I-M, but they're a small team out of Japan, and they've developed games like the Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, as well as Brave Frontier. I don't know the relationship between Alim and Square Enix, but like clearly they're under the umbrella because the creator director of the game is actually listed as Yoko Taro, who directed the Nier games, Nier Automata, Nier Replicant, all of those. So it's obvious that like from the top down, this game is heavily Square Enix, but this seems to be like the smaller developer. And of course, Square Enix, you should know, I mean, long-standing, used to be Squaresoft, Final Fantasy publisher and developer. I had not heard anything about this game. I'd never seen this series before, but once I saw it on sale, I did kind of dig a bit in Reddit, and there is a small Reddit following that's really dedicated, very into this series, and so I decided to give it a shot. Alright, so let's talk gameplay for Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars. So this is a role-playing game, but it's kind of dressed as a role-playing sim, as we've talked about. It's really heavy with the use of cards, and we'll get into that, but also trays, dice rolls, things like that. So it really gives you the feel that you're sitting at a table, you're role-playing in this scenario or in this campaign or whatever, and you have your characters, so on and so forth. So let's get into the basics first. So primarily, in terms of you on the controller or whatever, primarily what you're doing is you're cycling through, you're selecting, and then you're confirming different options. And what's nice is you can use either joystick, and the options are going to be presented to you. And if you use, I don't know, if you move the left joystick first, like you'll highlight the left option first. If you move the right, you'll highlight the right option first. So you're going to be constantly just, cycling through, and it's probably different on mobile. I would imagine that this game is actually pretty at home on mobile because you could just touch select or scroll through the options as you see them. So I don't see how that would be too difficult, but that's primarily what you're going to be doing, and that's really the role-playing aspect of it. Other than that, you're going to be moving a game piece depending on whatever map you're on. There are world maps, there are smaller maps like in town, but this is where using the two sticks is actually going to be interesting. So the left stick will move your game piece one space onto the next card in the whatever direction you're pushing, but you can also move the right stick and it's going to highlight any card that's sort of in your field of vision and allow you to select that card and then jump to it. So there's a little bit of freedom there with how you want to proceed. It makes it feel like you're not so boxed in, and we'll talk about the implications of being able to like choose a far away space to move to. Progression in this game. So let's talk in general about the game board and how you're traversing it. So there are spaces, and every space is a card. And like we said kind of in the intro, cards make up the map. It makes up the game board. So we're going to see a giant array of cards, and they're going to be lined up. And however far the cards go, that's sort of the edge of the map. So it's a finite map. It's laid out on a physical table that you see visually. And there are some things that are going to limit how you progress through, how you traverse this map. So one is a line of sight, and this is going to vary. But basically, this is going to dictate how far you can pan with the right stick and see the map. So this is going to be directly linked to like how light it is or how far your characters can quote unquote see. And we'll talk about the variation on the different maps of that. But basically it dictates how far you can select a card to jump to. Now, when you're on a lot of maps, the discovery of the spaces is going to be important. So when you first get on a map, you're going to see all the cards laid out, but they're going to be laid out face down. So you'll see the back of it, but you won't know what's there till you get close. And as you jump to a space or move a space, basically any card that is adjacent to the card that you're on is going to flip and be revealed. So this is going to be you uncovering the map. You're sort of moving and then quote unquote clearing away the clouds or flipping the cards, and they'll flip automatically. You don't have to do anything. Now, some cards are going to be walkable, some are not, and this is just going to be trial and error. Like if it's grass, if it's trees with a little shade, if it's like a wood path. All of those are going to be free for you to step on, but then you'll start to notice some obstructions like stone walls or like mountains or like really thick redwood trees or something like that on the card. And you'll, again, trial and error, like you'll go to jump on it and it'll bounce you back and it'll have like a symbol that comes up. It has like 2 feet and then it'll have an X through it, meaning that you can't go on it. But you can still discover that it's there by being in a space adjacent to it, flipping the card. So the main map that you're going to be exposed to is sort of an overworld map. And again, this is going to be a lot of getting close to cards, flipping them, revealing what the area is. You'll see spaces that are towns or spaces that are other locations that when you go on them, you'll go in them. So the overworld map is a way to traverse like town to town or into dungeons or caves or things like that. And those other locations, when you go in them, it's going to wipe away all the cards and then it'll be a different map. So you're constantly going to be either going in and out of locations, but seeing new maps come about onto the table in an array of cards. So you know when you'll go in a location that the world map will kind of go away and then another map that's probably a lot smaller, like a town, like a cave, or even a new world map, because you will progress leaving a world map to go to another world map as the game moves forward. Now, interacting with things, we've kind of alluded to it so far. Basically, to interact with anything, you need to step on that card. So you need to move your game piece to that card. Now, this could be a character, in which case you'll spark up a conversation with them. This could be a shop, a building where you're interacting with the shopkeeper, or you're going in the building, you're going in a town. Like if you see a town on a world map, you step on it and then you'll go into that town, a new map will come up. You might also jump on a chest and that'll prompt you to open it, find something inside. There are cards that are signs, which are helpful directing you to different areas. And then there are spaces that'll have like the 2 footprints in a circle, meaning like if you go onto this space, you will exit the map and go to either the next world map or another location or leave a town, so on and so forth. Sometimes you'll step on spaces and something random or something unmarked will happen. So most often this is going to be battle. So when you're on world maps or when you're in dungeons or caves, this is going to be randomized, similar to something like Pokemon. I think it's like the number of steps or like there's a certain percentage chance or something like that. I don't know. But, you know, when you walk in a dungeon or on a world map for a certain amount of spaces, eventually you'll run into a random battle and then you'll go into battle. An event might happen. This might be randomized, but I think more often it's predetermined, but it is unmarked, so you won't know it's on the card until you step on it. Now, some of these could be story events, like you can't avoid it. Some of these could be finding secrets, you know, some information that you got from someone in town gave you, or a secret note that you found. You're trying to find out, you know, where the treasure is, as well as like an item quest. Like if there's a certain item that you got, like a key item that says like, you know, go find this place or whatever, you know, but all of those things are going to be sort of trial and error. Like you'll happen to run into these things, or you might actually seek them out, try to like solve a riddle. Now, what is nice, and we've talked about this already, when you're able to move your game piece, you can move it manually with the left stick, or you can highlight a card and hit confirm, and then your piece will jump to it. Now, this is where like the line of sight comes in, but basically any card that is revealed that you're able to be on, like you're able to walk on, and is in your line of sight, meaning you can pan it with the right stick and get to it, you can jump to it. This is very helpful because when you're on the world map, the whole world map is very well lit. So as long as you've uncovered a space, you can, in one move your highlighter with the right stick to like on the opposite side of the map, as long as you've already discovered it. So this allows for backtracking on the world map, at least, to be very easy and simple. It gets a little tricky in caves or in dungeons because your line of sight is obstructed. And when you go into a cave, it'll normally tell you like, oh, the fog of the dungeon has restricted your line of sight. Basically what that means is it's limited your range for how far you can pan your selector with the right stick to jump to a distant card. But you're still able to, like once you uncover some of the map and you're kind of backtracking in a cave, you can move it like 4 or 5 spaces, which might be good because that'll limit potentially how many random battles you come into, so on and so forth. But as you're progressing through the game in general, there will be a main objective. It'll be notated. You'll be able to pop it up at any time, and this will change anytime something happens, anytime you get new information. And primarily, you're going to find out a lot of this information from talking to people. And in a lot of conversations, you'll have dialogue choices to get information. Again, nothing really new for a role-playing game, as well as progressing by going through major combat battles, finding new characters, getting new lore. All of that is sort of like benchmarks to progress. And like we did talk about earlier, there will be a point when you leave a map. And the game is very linear in that aspect because you'll leave like a world map to go to a new world map and you won't be able to go back. Let's talk about your party. So very similar to Japanese role-playing games, you're going to have a party. It's going to be limited and you'll have extra characters that you can swap in and out. So just like Final Fantasy X, you'll have 3. You'll actually start with 3 characters, but you'll have a max of 3 that you can sort of be your starting lineup in your party. But more will come as the story progresses and you can swap them in and out. Every character is going to have stats. They're going to have a max HP, attack, defense, speed, and whatever level they are. Each character will have their own skills, and these are basically battle moves that are available to play, sort of like a hand of cards. Again, everything is cards. But your character is going to be able to have 4 as a max equipped, and these are going to vary. They're going to be basic attacks. They might be elemental attacks. They might be an attack with a dice roll added to it, like a D6. It might be an attack with a status effect that might hit with a dice roll. I think they're D10s, so it's like get a 5 or above and you'll freeze your enemy. You can buff yourself, potentially buff your fellow party members. You can debuff enemies and you can heal. These are all different variations of skills that different characters might have. They also might come with a cost, and this will be noted on the card. And the cost is going to be in the form of gems, and we'll talk about what gems mean and how you get them. Your basic attacks are probably going to be 0 cost, but there could be 1 gem, 2, 3, maybe even more. That basically means to perform that move on that character's turn, you're going to need to use up that amount of gems. Characters will level up and gain new skills. So similar to something like Pokemon, like as your Pokemon level up, they might gain skills that level, but they can only have a max of 4 equipped. But what's nice is you don't lose them. You just get them into like your pool that you can swap in and out. You can go in the menu at any time for each character and decide which 4 moves you're going to want them to have in battle. And what's nice is these are going to be unique to the different characters. So it's not like you're going to see a lot of repetitiveness. One character might have the heal early on. Another character might get a better heal later on. Some might specialize in certain elements. Some might not specialize in any elements and just have regular attacks. Each character may also get abilities, and these are passive effects, so not things that you need to do. And these will come, every 3 or 4 levels, you might get a passive ability. These might be certain elemental resistances, the ability to like auto heal after battle or something like that. So these are going to vary and again, be unique to specific characters. You'll also have equipment, and these are going to boost any of your stats depending on what they are. So you're going to have 3 slots for each character: a weapon, armor, and an accessory. Now, weapons are going to be the most unique to your character. So the sword is only going to go to the one guy. So when you find new swords, it's probably only going to be able to be equipped by him. Armor, there might be some transfer, like some characters will be able to share different armor types. There's no like character classes or anything like that, so it's really just trial and error for who can equip what. And you'll see it when you go to the shop or when you go to the equipment menu, like equip to who, and certain characters will be blacked out while others who can equip it will be able to. And then accessories, pretty much everyone can equip the same accessories, so it's up to you strategy-wise, like, who's going to equip this accessory that adds to defense, or this makes resistance to fire or immunity to poison or something like that. So you can strategize because everyone can have accessories, so you decide. Gradually, as you get through the game, you'll find or buy better gear. This is very slow, very minor. I mean, you definitely want to, when you go to a new town, go to the shop, see if there's a better sword or a better bow or a better whatever. It's really not something that is going to be that big of a deal, but slowly, incrementally will increase your attack power or your defense or something like that. It's a bit clunky doing this, like finding better equipment, equipping it, and then selling the old ones. And we'll come back to that in a little bit when we talk about just the physical cards aspect of it, but it's not something that I really enjoyed, the equipment, which is interesting because I don't know if most role-playing game fans or most Japanese role-playing game fans are a fan of the equipment, like buy and sell, min-max and whatnot, but it's not really that much better or unique here, so take it or leave it. Let's get a little bit into combat by starting with enemies. So enemies are similar to you. They will have the same stats, like they're going to have an HP, an attack, a defense, a speed. You will see all of these, like you'll see on their card their attack, their defense with swords and shields, and then their max HP, so you don't have to worry about like scanning for their stats or anything like that. It won't show their speed, but the order of the turn is going to be determined by who's the fastest speed, who's the slowest, so on and so forth. Some enemies will have inherent weaknesses to certain elements. They may also have resistances. So you will find that out by trial and error, by doing the moves, and then it'll say like, oh, weak, or oh, resist. And that'll help you learn like, oh, this guy's weak to fire. Oh, don't use, wind on this guy or whatever. And the enemies themselves will also have unique moves, doing damage, buffing, debuffing themselves or other enemies. They might hit you with elemental things. They might hit you with status effects. So just as much as the moves that you have are in the pool, like you're going to see similar things, but again, unique to the specific enemies. And just combat in general, so sometimes you'll have those random encounters on world maps or in caves, but sometimes you'll have a story combat where it's just like you can't avoid it, it's just the way it goes, like this is a big battle here, especially at like the end of, an area or the end of a chapter. And in combat, you have a max of 3 characters, you're going to see that the enemies are going to have the same thing, so it might vary that you'll have 1 enemy or up to 3 enemies, but it's going to be sort of an even match. There's not going to be more than 3 enemies, at least I haven't seen it. And combat is turn-based. Again, the order is by speed, so it's going to intertwine. It's not like all of your characters go first and all their characters go. It's going to be whoever's speed matches up, so similar to like a D&D initiative. So in combat, you're going to have a gem pool. And this is noted by you have like this little box or this little tray, similar to if you play D&D and you like house your dice in a certain box or something like that. So you'll have a gem pool and you'll always start with 1 gem. It's like this white kind of clear gem. And anytime it's one of your character's turns, you will gain a gem in that pool. And the gems are used for moves. So like we talked about, some of your skills are going to require 1 gem or 2 gems. So you use them if you have enough in your pool to do that move. If you don't have enough in your pool, you won't be able to do certain moves. But again, they recharge every time it's one of your character's turn. So you can choose to do some moves that don't take up any gems, so you can stock up, or you can use them, whatever you want to do, whatever your strategy. Now, when you're attacking, when you do moves, the damage that you do, I'm a little unclear about this. I figured it was your attack versus their defense. And whatever the difference is, that's how much damage you do. It's not clear because some of the moves actually attack multiple times. Some of the elemental things will happen multiple times. Sometimes I was like, oh, I have an attack of 20 and his defense is 15. He only has 4 hit points left. Like, that's fine. It'll do 5 damage, and it does like 7 damage. So I don't know how it's determined, but I think it's like there's a vague like range of like it should be about 5, but like you could do less, you could do more because of, I don't know, random dice rolls in the background. Anyway, it's not clear, but it's not something that I was really upset about. It's just a little interesting. Again, some enemies are weak to things, they resist. There's also a crit chance. You don't really see that, but if you crit, like there'll be a special animation and your character's card will like highlight and then it'll say crit on the enemy that got hit. Same thing with weakness, similar to like if you're playing Persona or something like that, like you'll see it when it happens, like weak or crit or whatever. It doesn't get you anything special other than extra damage. But what's interesting is once you hit an enemy with something that they're weak to or resist to, it'll get noted in the game. And at any point in battle, you can actually hit a button to flip all of the cards. And on the backs of every card that's in battle, it'll say like what their weaknesses are, what their resistance is, if you've discovered it, like if you've done the move and you've experienced it. So I like that information is available to you. You don't have to just memorize it. There are other things you can do on your turn. You can consume items. So you will find items that are consumables. Again, they're cards. I think you can hold up to 30. These are going to be used for either buffing yourself or other characters, healing, clearing a status. Some can do damage to enemies. If you use a consumable on a character's turn, that will constitute their turn. So the strategy will just ensue depending on what you want to do. And when you kill all the enemies, you'll get a certain amount of gold and experience. You might get items. You might get equipment, depending on if there's maybe a key item in that battle that you're trying to retrieve. Now, let's talk about pacing in the micro sense. So I just want to talk a little bit about physically what's happening with the cards. There's a bit of clunkiness. So what I mean is, like, if you're reading something that a character is saying, the words are written on a card and, I'm hitting X to have him go to the next card or go to the next statement. If you get to the point where you have to respond, there's a bit of waiting in between the card being finished and the options being readable or selectable or cyclable. And it gets a little frustrating at times because I'm trying to move quickly. If you've played older role-playing games, like having the ability to cycle through dialogue quick or read it faster, and just the snappiness of sort of the next thing for you to cycle through coming up quickly, that really doesn't happen. There's such a delay in between this. And so I've found myself getting a little impatient at times, like over clicking. I never like click too much and like skip dialogue or anything like that. But I think just the general physical pace, I don't know if it's because there are cards, like it's trying to really get you to read them or appreciate that you're using cards. I don't know. But this really makes selling old equipment so labored and frustrating because every time you go to sell, it's like, oh, choose an equipment. Are you sure you want to sell it? And again, you're waiting an extra second for you to be able to cycle through yes or no. And it's just like those times compound and get me a little impatient. Especially, it gets frustrating where I feel like the game is over tutorialized. Every time you go to a shop, like, okay, I've been here. Like, why do I have to listen to these same statements? And like, why am I sitting through these extra second delays? I'm not saying that I'm an impatient person, but just like the physical pace of the game is a bit slow, especially when you've done something for like the 1,000th time. It's like, can't we speed this up a little bit? I will put a pin in that because there is an option to speed up the game, but the game says there's consequences, but we'll talk about that. I do have a query about this because I wonder if this is intentional for really trying to get the sim presentation right, like really trying to ground you and make you remember like, hey, you're in not just an RPG, but like a role-playing sim. So like maybe take a beat, appreciate it, like recognize that the craft of what you're doing is not just in the context of the game, but also like, hey, we are simulating a role-playing game. I don't know. And on that note, in terms of the pacing of the actual RPG that you're playing, you are on a quest, you are on a journey. Again, you need to talk to characters, learn of them. You can actually find more information on basic characters in the lore menu when you talk to them. There's a lot of quest ping-ponging just to find the main thing. It reminds me a lot of anime, especially something like Pokemon. Like, oh, Ash is on this arc where he's trying to get to this gym, or this is the next stop. And it's like this episode, you happen to find a cabin and, oh, there's something going on here. Like you need to solve this problem. And after that problem is solved, now you're back on the road to where you need to go. So like small town problems, getting information, pointing you on to the big quest. A lot of that. And that's going to lead you from world map into town, from another town out to a cave, back to the first town. And then once you've solved all those problems, you're going to progress on to another world map. And again, that linear sort of no return. So you're going to a new map, makes it feel like an epic, a journey. What I do like in terms of the combat and the pacing of like challenge, there's really no grinding needed. I feel like the battles are paced well with challenge. What's interesting is when you get to a new map, it will kind of serve as a new chapter. And when you go onto the space that leads you to the new map, you're going to see like a recap video of like camera moving from card to card, like with writing, kind of summarizing what happened as well as what you're going to encounter next, which is kind of nice, kind of interesting. And beyond that, there are a lot of optional things you can do. There is a card game. Yes, I know, it makes sense. That you can play when you go to certain towns. You'll just like go to the card parlor and you can, oh, fancy a game? And so it's like a little side thing. It's not that crazy. It's like some version of like canasta meets like rummy or gin rummy or something like that. Other than that, we talked about like secret quests, like you might hear something from someone in town, or you might find a note that's like, oh, here's where the treasure's buried or something like that. So you might go try to find it out on that world map, as well as like we talked about, like finding a lot of lore about the NPCs, trying to collect all that lore and get a full lore menu or whatever. And then finally, in terms of accessibility, I think there's a difficulty level option in the intro to the game. I picked normal. Whatever is just like, for seasoned gamers, but not people who've played this game before. I think it's fine. Like I said, I haven't found the need to grind. Some of the battles have been tough, but I've liked that, again, maybe stressing more the sim element. It's not like meant to be super crazy. It's meant to appreciate that you're in a role-playing game. You will have characters die in battle, like their HP goes down. What's nice is, as long as you don't have all your characters die, right after the battle, they'll be revived with 1 HP. So you don't have to worry about like buying a lot of Phoenix Downs or whatever the item is for reviving. There are options in the menu to make it easier for you in both audio and visual. What I like is there's an option for important text or things to be emphasized. They can either be underlined or put in red. I chose the underline. Helps for me because I'm a bit colorblind, so it's nice to have that option. There is an option to hit fast game speed, but there is a warning because you have this narrator, which we'll talk about in a little bit, who's like reading the cards and kind of acting as the DM. It warns you that it puts a little stress on his voice and he might not read all the cards. So I don't know what that looks like. I feel like that might be a funny thing. I have not chosen this option. This might alleviate my complaints about, the second delays and like allowing the options to answer the question to come to you faster. I don't know. The game does warn you that it's going to change certain things and that if you restart the game, it's going to set it back to normal. So I want to say that the developers kind of don't want you to do this, but it is an option. And you can save whenever manually, but it also auto-saves as you, leave towns or beat things, beat big bosses, things like that. So that's nice. All right, let's talk about the vibe of Voice of Cards, the Isle Dragon Roars. So overall, I will say this is a finely polished, elegantly presented game, which is not a surprise given that it's published by Square Enix. It gives me a lot of feelings of Octopath Traveler, Bravely Default. I haven't played those games too extensively, but I have played Octopath Traveler for quite a bit, and it just presents itself in such a way where you're like, wow, this is high quality or high budget, potentially. And let's start with the visuals. Beautiful. The game is beautiful, and it's all about these cards. So these cards are crafted beautifully, beautiful art style, very colorful. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of Vanillaware, especially with the characters, but certainly more defined. I feel like the Vanillaware games like Odin's Sphere, like Dragon's Crown, these are a bit more like wispy, or these are a lot more defined. I feel like visually it's part anime, part realism. If you look at the cards that have like the water where you can't go, so it's like the ocean or the bay or whatever, like the whites of the waves are a bit anime-ish, but as well as like the shadows on the trees, like it's trying to have a certain art style, but again, like you are sitting at a table, you do have gems, game pieces, dice rolls, and that's where sort of the realism comes in, so I like that contrast. It's all very bright though. It's not like Inscription, like you're not sitting in a dark room, everything is pretty well lit. A lot of strong colors, like the water is blue. It's not supposed to be like real water. The mountains are brown. So it's really trying to show the color contrast, like, oh, this card is, wood planks because you're walking along the path. This card is like a meadow. This is more grassy. So it's very intentional. And again, that contrast of like you're in a sim, so like things around you are a bit realistic, but the actual thing you're playing, like the cards, it's very sort of art style anime type. The characters, these are really cool because your characters will sit in whatever pose they're always in on the card. A lot of action poses. I really like this. They're kind of not quite contorted, but like the girl who has a bow, like she has her bow strung back and like she's got a positive, like happy face or joyful, whatever. A lot of big eyes, very anime, the big hair, kind of in an action shot, like thrown to the back. I like the backs of the cards. So what's nice is you can progress through the game and actually unlock different options. So you can like customize what your card backs are. So when you go into a world map and you see all the backs, you can kind of choose what it all looks like. The different card effects are pretty cool. So again, you're playing with cards, and what happens is when your character will attack or do a skill, like the card will raise up and like push towards the other one, almost like the old Yu-Gi-Oh games. Like you'll see it attack. It's not like your character will attack, like your character's card comes up and hits. As well as if it like does an elemental spell, like you'll see a ring around it, or you'll see some of the elemental aspects. In addition to if you invoke like a status effect, like it'll say a card is poisoned, but then the card itself will be covered in like this green glob. So really a lot of cool things going on with card effects, as well as when characters are talking, which is really helpful because if you have your party, like the cards of your party will be on the right. And if you're talking to a character on the left, whichever character is talking to the other character, their card will like shake or like do something to let you know that like this character's talking. It almost feels like someone took like cardboard cutouts of these characters and is like sitting with them in their hands and like talking as them, like, oh, how are you? Like shaking the one, and then the other one talks and you shake the other one. Oh, I'm great. How are you? It's pretty funny how it happens, and they just levitate. It's not like a hand is holding them up. So I really like that. It kind of keeps the fact that you're in a sim, but also it really does make you feel like, oh, these characters are actual characters. And then, of course, like I said, some of the other sim elements, like the table feels a bit more realistic, although it is very colorful or bright. The gems that you see, like you can see the twinkle in some of them, or like the angle of the cuts on them. The dice rolls, that's something that really gets me, like having the dice go out. It's like you're playing D&D and you have D&D Beyond up and you see the dice roll. Like I really like that. As well as like the game piece moving. It really fills that D&D itch if you're someone who likes D&D role playing in general and like doing dice rolls or like having physical things. Like it really tries to cater to that, and I think it actually does it pretty successfully. In terms of audio, there is a narrator. I don't know if you would constitute him as the DM, but it's just really interesting. It also adds to the fact that this is a sim, and it's this older guy who's pretty pleasant, pretty calm. There are times where like you'll do something in the game and it kind of breaks the fourth wall a bit. Like if you do a crit, or if like you have a big elemental hit that's a weakness, he'll say something. He'll be like, oh, nice hit. Oh, you got lucky there. And you win a battle, and he'll say like, congrats. So it's just like kind of grounding in a really nice way. Again, bringing that best of both worlds. Like you're playing a role-playing game, but you're also in a sim. Him being there reminds you a lot. And he's not like over the top theatrical. It's not like Darkest Dungeon or anything like that. It's very sort of like matter of factly, almost like with a bit of dryness. Like, oh, I forgot he's here, but you're reminded constantly. The sound effects are interesting, a bit piercing. I had to turn some of the like spell sound effects or card sound effects or battle. I had to turn that down because it like pierced my speakers, and they actually cut out every time I was doing an elemental attack. So they can be a bit jarring. So maybe you want to tune yourself to that. But the music in this game is exceptional. It's fully orchestrated. It's over the top, extravagant. It really brings the feel of adventure, of elegance, which actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is a Square Enix published game, and the composer is listed as Keiichi Okabe, who did the score for Nier Automata, which is an amazing score. And you feel a lot of that in this game. You feel all of those instruments. You feel the rising and the rushing and really getting those emotions and the storytelling conveyed. And in all honesty, maybe even better than the characters and the dialogue at times. But you feel a lot of that, and I also feel a lot of Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark in here. When you're out on the world map, feeling like the open plain and the bird chirping, like you're hearing that in the music, and it's just so vibrant. And it really brings me back to a lot of great role-playing games as I'm listening to this soundtrack. And finally, in terms of themes or story, it's a very simple plot. It's super traditional, very JRPG. Reminds me a lot of PS2 RPGs like Rogue Legacy, Grandia 2. Like your main character is young, he's kind of a hothead, he's inexperienced, he puts his foot in his mouth sometimes. There's like a rival gang that's a ton more powerful. You're going to find the dragon. There's magic, there's swords, there's knights, there's kings, there's all of that stuff. But you're on this quest, and you're doing it for this organization, but they're slowly creeping in some questions of, corruption. Is this the right path? A lot of things hidden for you, but alluded to. If you're a JRPG vet, you're going to see a lot of this from a mile away, but I will say in general, the game seems to be more about the presentation of it and the sim experience than the content. And as I'm playing through this game, I don't mind that. All right, let's wrap up the conversation about Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars. I like this game. I hear good things about the other two. I was reading a lot that they vary a lot what they do, especially with story tropes. I like this experience. Again, I don't think this is meant to be a deep role-playing game. Certainly not a deep Japanese role-playing game. Min and maxing, leveling up, grinding, things like that, despite many of the Japanese tropes and flares that are in the game. It's a small journey. It's slow moving. Again, my complaint about the card physics, it's not quick. There is that option to change it. I don't know if that might ruin the framing or ruin the experience, because I don't know what this is supposed to be more of, a role-playing game or a D&D sim about role-playing. I think it's more on the side of the look as the D&D sim, the elegance and the ambiance and how it's presented, the cards, the DM, the dice rolls, the music. It's such an enjoyable and warm experience if you're patient with it. If you're someone who enjoys D&D, someone who enjoys role-playing, I feel like that's where the value is in this game. And in terms of value, $30 for an MSRP, I think that's too much. It's certainly too much for me. I do think that the fact that this is Square Enix published, the art, the charm, Yoko Taro, creative director, Keiichi Okabe on the soundtrack. I mean, this has the backing of so many great role-playing games. It almost has a cushion behind it. I feel like that's what's drawing the price tag, and I understand that. I like that I got it at $12. I think that's a great price. 12, maybe down to 10. I thought about getting the trilogy when it was on sale. I think it was like 25 for the trilogy, but I just wanted to dip my toe into this series. I don't know if I'll see this through, and I don't know if I will jump into the games after this, but certainly if you like this first game, you will probably like the games after it. I think in general, it's a well-polished game. It has charm. It's a simple RPG. It might even be good for an RPG intro, despite it being so slow. I don't know if I would give my wife a turn. I feel like she would get really aggravated about like the pace of it, the pace of the cards. So I think it's more for the role players of this world. And so in that aspect, and for potentially those people, I do recommend this game. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Stay tuned for our next episode to see what new game we found for you.